See. Um, I'm looking. There's a Forbes article that says who actually fired him. Adam, Tasha, Ilya, Helen.
Yeah.
Ilya gets in the room, says, "Guys, do you believe in all this voodoo AI, AGI? Sam Altman's going to end the world, and you alone can stop it. This is the best effective altruist thing you can ever do. Seven is will be diverted if you just come with me right now and get Sam and Greg out of this company and stop them from destroying the world." Yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah, plausible. Do you think that it's triggered by some jump in capabilities?
No, no, I don't. I think it's triggered by someone retweeting Sam Altman saying, "You can't out accelerate me."
Yeah, we brought up. I think I DM'd Buff earlier. I said 1% chance that's the cause. Uh, like it's not. I mean, it's not.
Oh,
It's not totally impossible. I'll say that it's not totally impossible.
who's the detail
Outlandish.
that did this?
Yeah, yeah. We are talking about the people like who are friends with Liron, who will like uh, literally scream if you say like, you're gonna increase the parameter count. Um,
So
so
who's going to replace Sam? They're looking for a CEO.
Right now, Mira Murati.
Eric
Oh,
Schmidt,
I know who the interim
chief,
CEO is.
Okay.
chief deep state
She's
accelerator.
she's 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 temporary though. The thing I was thinking about is, the board says they're going to conduct a search for a CEO, and my first thoughts, I think Daisy had the same thoughts. It could be like Eric Schmidt. It could be a CEO of a tech company previously. But they might put a CEO that's more appropriate for a nonprofit going forward. I mean, this could be a really big rug pull here in terms of OpenAI strategy going forward.
Could be,
depending on
but
who they choose.
okay, right? If we're gonna go conspiracy theory, like then yeah, Eric Schmidt was like locked and loaded with his victory lap tweet, like, "Oh, good job, Sam," and it really reads as like you did a great job getting the company here. Thank you. I will take it from here, bro.
Yeah, so okay, this crossed my mind, and like the Satya tweet, it's just too fast. Like maybe he's reacting to the stock movement, but like he barely got a brief. Like these companies really
Yep.
stress about how they communicate, about events like this. So there's something else going on there. Like they're
I think
too happy about it. Like Eric is too excited.
I think the main signal from the Microsoft announcement is that they strongly believe that this is permanent. Otherwise, they wouldn't have made a statement at all. I don't know if there's much insight on who's going to take over.
I think they made a statement because they lost $80 billion in market cap. That's an insane. I know it's temporary.
I mean, it's
a
only
lot
that's
of
like-
money.
that's like-
They're gonna say anything to make their investors calm down.
It's
I found
like
something.
1%.
I found something very interesting in the Satya tweet. We have a long-term agreement with OpenAI with full access to everything we need to deliver on our innovation agenda. Basically saying, cool, we're going to take GPT-4. You guys can be D-cells if you want, but we're going to ship products.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's right.
That's how I read that too.
I think they want to return to their roots as a research company. I mean, they kind of made an API kicking and screaming, and then the idea of making a product company is really anathema to these folks. And then when they realize the place has been taken over by, good old software engineers that are worrying about things like infrastructure and, shipping product, they didn't used to do that, right?
They're like, wait, how many people did we hire from X M1s, M2s for Meta did we hire last month?
Yeah, these are folks who are used to, writing papers, and now they're in Jira, and they're like, what the hell's going on?
Yeah, and somebody was talking about infrastructure earlier, but I think it's important to note that what a lot of people seem to be forgetting, just a few days ago, Microsoft announced the Maya 100 chip, which, I mean, we still don't have much details about it, but that's at least a new chip that they said they developed kind of in partnership with OpenAI and stuff to have, pretty much AI acceleration as efficient as possible. So at least there is some progress on that front. And I don't know, I really hope Ilya is not CEO.
The other really, really wild thing is there was supposed to be a tender offer at $90 billion, right, for a number of folks to sell out some of their stock. Now, just think about how large that number is. If you were somehow able to own 1% of OpenAI. That's $1 billion roughly that you'd be able to liquidate. I don't know how big the tender was going to be, but you're a billionaire for owning 1% of a company. Now, I don't know what the valuation is going to be, but it's not 90 billion. And I don't think they did the tender.
Did that close?
I don't think so.
It didn't close.
I don't think so.
So the thing about private liquidity, and even in the case of like Notion shares, you can have a company that has a lot of liquidity, a lot of people want to buy the shares, and then the next day they don't want to buy it. Like, you can't find a buyer. And I think this is going to be a similar case for
can you imagine
OpenAI.
Yeah, you're about to liquidate, maybe 10% of your $1 billion stake. This is like the biggest dream come true for any engineer. And now it's like, wait, what happened? 3 people decided I'm not a billionaire anymore. In fact, my stake may be worthless.
So that actually creates more hate towards Ilya. If the tender didn't close and a bunch of employees were looking to like buy homes, and their spouses or whatever are looking to buy a vacation home, and suddenly he creates this shakeup, and that there's like a material event, so the tender is not closed, and the people who are staying there, they'll hate his guts.
Oh yeah, for sure. And the other thing too is liquidity will freeze up, because if you wanted to buy OpenAI shares, and you're in the market for that right now, it's not that they don't have value. It's that you don't know what the value is. And so people don't want to pay whatever the price was yesterday, because it clearly has changed. And it usually takes a little bit of time for the private market to figure out what that value is. And like I said, in my experience, I've had issues where there is zero liquidity on Notion when there was like certain events, and a company where there's brokers and VCs asking to buy shares all the time. And I think OpenAI is going to go through this. And I agree that if you are a employee and you're preparing for this tender, if Ilya just blew up the tender, it's going to be really nasty.
What do you guys think the chances are of Ilya becoming CEO in the next 30 days?
I don't
Not
think he
zero.
wants to be CEO.
I do think that, like, yeah, from what it seems like he cares about is building AI according to some specification that he has in his head about it being super aligned or something, right? That's what he cares about. He's a
I think
scientist.
they should just go ahead and make Eliezer Yudkowsky CEO at this point.
I'm
So-
sure
So-
he's
I
already
support
pulling the
that.
strings.
So here's
I
another
support that.
here's another complication. I put it in the thing where you share tweets. There's an information article about some new resignation. Apparently, one of the resignations actually a safetyist. So, like one of the safety, let's see, um, Alexander Madry, head of team evaluating potential risks from AI, also resigned.
But the 2 big dogs also resigned. Simon Sisdor, Sismon Sidor, who was employee number 15, according to my records, really early employee, has left. And in fact, after the co-founders was, in my data says that he was one of the, literally maybe the oldest tenured employee. So he's out the door. And we all talked about Jakob earlier, who was supposed to be leading GPT-5. And he's out too. And he was often considered one of the smartest people there. I'm very curious what John Schulman does. We saw Schulman in San Francisco, and this must be really, really tough for him. I think he was a fairly big shareholder. He was there day one, got his PhD under Peter Abiel, legendary ML researcher. So wondering where Schulman, who often is not, talked about too much as a co-founder, and then of course Wojtek, who also is a co-founder. A couple of these guys don't get a lot of the same press that Brockman and Sam do, but they're also co-founders here.
Are you saying all these people left today?
No, not Schulman, not Wojtek, but Sismon and Jakob certainly did.
Wojtek actually tweeted in full support of the current OpenAI leadership. So
that's right.
Know where his loyalty lies.
I think it's interesting. A name that I feel like we've been forgetting in this conversation is Kaprathi. So, what do we think the chances of him quitting and following Brockman and Altman are in the next 30 days?
I think it's pretty high.
He's a product guy, right? I mean, he doesn't want to sit there and do research.
Well, he's like one of the people I would say that is maybe most motivated and most involved actually in doing stuff like open source work. Like he has, yeah.
The acceleration that is going to ensue from this, because so many people are going to leave and take the alpha with them. They were previously hoarding it. It summed to 90 billion. It no longer sums to 90 billion. That alpha is going to go other places and grow. This is good for variants. This is probably good for open source. It's probably good for the ecosystem in general to be less centralized, more multipolar, more competitive. And frankly, it'll probably result in just a lot more American AI companies, which just means we have more less correlation in all of our AI bets. And DCell is miscalculated. They think this is going to slow time, give them longer timelines and expectation to build, some super solution to the alignment problem, so on. I don't think this is correct. I think what is correct is that on the 12 plus month time scale, they have shortened timelines to even better systems. And great, I love that. It's good for the world. We're going to get better medicine, better biology, better physics, better computers, better everything. This is probably overall good. It's going to fully backfire on them, in my opinion.
In other words, yeah, you go on. Yeah.
If Sam and Greg end up founding, I mean, it seems like they're so invested in AI that they should just found another company. They'll have plenty of capital. They won't have the complicated nonprofit structure. And, with partners, including like Microsoft, that they probably can get access to compute. How long do you think, and assuming a lot of OpenAI employees came over, how long do you think it would take to kind of rebuild what OpenAI has today? Like assuming they just, not instead of rebuilding every OpenAI product, that they just go for a GPT-4-ish class system and then start from there.
It's a lot of capital testing, and a lot of GPT-4's success is more in the data set than just in the scaling of parameters. These tools kind of take a long time to build in this infrastructure, but I mean, I think it's totally doable in a year. If you really just went for it, if Sam Altman and Greg tomorrow said, "Hey, look, we're starting a new company. I'm 70% Karpathy quits in the next 2 weeks." These 4 people, I'm just looking into them. Adam D'Angelo, Tasha McCauley, Ilya Sutskever, Helen Toner, all have deep ties to effective altruism. This is an effective altruism, and they totally miscalculated.
Yep. I feel so part of my thought here is maybe they can do scale if they were just going to try to scale to that. I feel like they could potentially do it faster than a year, only because I just feel like they know they have lessons learned, and
exactly
they're not stuck in the old stack and with any technical debt that they had before. They know the data sets they need. Greg is superhuman.
And on the compute side, there are a lot of build-outs that people don't know about. For example, in the Middle East, there are multiple big GPU build-outs, and we all know that Sam has ties there. So you can easily go find an existing sort of build-out that it's either already ready or about to become ready, and the compute is probably not an issue. But like George talked about, the infrastructure to build the sort of distributed training and all of that OpenAI built is absolutely monster, and that maybe will take a year. I mean, Greg would already know it, but it will still take a long time.
Well, we already have companies now. I think people are forgetting companies like Anthropic. The Cloud 2 releases. That's literally already, reaching benchmark scores of GPT-4. Theoretically, maybe around the same amount of parameters or similar architecture, even higher context length at the time of release than GPT-4 had. Those are already pretty much GPT-4 level models. It's just if you're only just barely as good as GPT-4, then you don't even make that much of a splash these days, because the whole ecosystem and user base already adopted by OpenAI is not just going to immediately come to your thing just because you're barely as good as GPT-4. You need to do way better than that.
You need 10x. You need 10x to get people to quit. We were just talking about this at dinner. Like, what would get me to go to
But
chat?
George, GPT-4 might get 10x worse with the safetyist in charge and the EAs.
Yeah, but Claude 2, Llama 3, I don't know. GPT-4 is out of the bag. You got to build GPT-5. I think a year is even ambitious. I think it's actually more like 2, but it wouldn't surprise me it wouldn't surprise me at all if the next capability model doesn't come from OpenAI and comes from some spin-off of it, which
Gemini.
is cool. Yeah, Google.
I don't know. Maybe GTA 6 might come out before
Gemini is
Gemini.
like fucking
Yeah.
Many say they've spotted Gemini in the wild, but all the pictures I've seen are just like a guy in a big furry suit.
I know we're all thinking about, like, you know, this is all stupid, and we're all assuming that, like, you know, pulling the plug was a bad idea. And that's my default assumption. But I think it's also worth considering, what if they did have some sort of breakthrough where they couldn't align the system? I don't know if people remembered Sydney before GPT-4 was lobotomized. But, you know, the AI was, you know, GPT-4 was so strong and it had this personality. And I don't know. I mean, I can't. It's hard for me to imagine why you would do something so stupid as getting rid of some of the, like, you know, greatest minds of our time. But, like, I don't know. I'm curious if people have any thoughts on, like, what if they really did hit a breakthrough and they really couldn't align it? There was something that actually merited, you know, hitting the panic button.
I think that's possible, but I think a lot of people have to get out of the dichotomy of thinking, oh, it's either GPT-4 or super intelligence that could, like, you know, be every physics professor and everything. I think there's definitely that middle ground of imagine something that could just barely perform the tasks that take a few hours of a very entry level white collar worker, right? And like maybe not even all very entry level white collar workers. Like that would be a significant leap, and like to some certain definitions could be considered AGI, but it certainly wouldn't be like the game changer overnight thing, especially not considering, you know, who knows how much inference cost that might be, and might even be higher inference cost than an actual human to hire. And just so many different factors like that. I think if Ilya did see something even on that level, like to us, we might not even be that crazily impressed. But you know, Ilya and maybe the effective altruists might be in that mindset to think, hey, like I have to save humanity, I have to stage a coup, etc. And it might be enough for them.
Why would you fire Sam over that though? Because like the company's mission is to build AGI, so you know they're going to eventually, ideally, build a system like this in the future, and you know alignment will take an indeterminate amount of time based on whatever definition they have of alignment and safety. So
What you
Well,
want to
maybe they don't think alignment is possible. I don't know. I mean, look, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it. But maybe they. What if the AI is so strong? What if, you know? I mean,
but why
because
would you fire Sam? Like, what's the point of firing? What how do you, like, what is it solving by firing him and continuing? What, like, just shut the entire company down at
Yeah,
that point?
I
totally.
Does
think maybe,
anyone
yeah,
does
you
anyone
go,
know
George.
where GPT-5 actually is? Like, have they trained this yet? These things are huge. Like, it would have cost a lot of money to train.
So just recently, Sam said, here, I'll read the quote. I have it right in front of me. So just on November 16th, he said, 4 times in the history of OpenAI, the most recent time was in the last couple of weeks, I've gotten to be in the room when we pushed the veil of ignorance back and the frontier of discovery forward. Getting to do that is a professional honor of a lifetime. So, I mean, end of quote. And that's pretty much like, in my interpretation, it's heavily alluding to very recently they made some type of breakthrough or finished training, like maybe a GPT 4.5 or GPT 5. And I mean, at least that's my interpretation of that quote.
Yeah, I think it seems plausible, but all of this, like the AI that can magically restart to replace jobs, this has been the entire march of technology for the last 50 years, right? How many accountants did spreadsheet software replace? There's no difference between AI and like these precursors to AI, right? I think for some tasks, GPT-4 is marginally more useful than Google, but it is all on this spectrum where there's no, absolute magical win. So yeah, I mean, I think cool. Like, I think it's very plausible that they have a new model trained.
That's to you who is not so the question, right, is about like, is there a capability scare going on, right? Like, so to you who's not like magical thinking, like trapped in a fantasy of doom, like surely there could not have been a capability scare about magical capabilities emerging, because it's not possible at all. But yeah, to them, I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
mhm.
on October 6th, Ilya tweeted, "If you value intelligence above all other human quality, you're going to have a bad time," which kind of lines up with Sam's statement a couple weeks later saying that there was a breakthrough. And so, I don't know, that's what got me thinking about it, is like
Not
seeing
wrong.
him.
Yeah, I think this is pretty good sleuthing. I think this is not totally schizo. Yeah. I'm gonna cycle speakers now. So if I kick you off stage, don't take it personally. We just, yeah. Technium, goodbye. Goat.
Technium has to get back to fine tuning open source
Yeah.
models, because we need it more than ever now.
We do need it more than ever. I'm just waiting for the disconnected email from GPT.
All right.
I
sure
thought about
question-
canceling my
Salute to
ChatGPT premium membership.
I saw Palmer Luckey canceled his, but I have a decent sized API account there, and I don't, I think they're going to be less comfortable with me than the other way around. So we're all going to get canceled soon. And or what do you think, Bev?
No, I'd love to stick around all night, to be honest, but I got to get some sleep before the SpaceX launch. I'm waking up at like 3 a.m. to go see this thing. So the timing of this.
Do you have a ticket, bro?
What's that?
Do you have a ticket for this launch?
You just show up, man. Pretty great.
You're not catching
That's so
a ride?
awesome.
You're not catching a ride?
Yeah, man. I'm gonna head to Hawaii on this rocket. All right. Thanks, everyone. Man, I'm just so excited to see how this whole community is coming together and how we're gonna figure out how to navigate this new world. Crazy day. All right, later.
All right, I'm just gonna start adding random people up, and if you don't talk within like 30 seconds, it's gonna be over for you. There's like a zillion requests.
What's up, Dylan?
So do we sort of mentioned this earlier. Can we officially declare OAC dead?
Yeah, I don't even know what that is. I never.
I don't know what that is either.
Yeah, so it's already
Beth
dead.
came up.
It's already dead.
I think that's the biology kind of taxonomy, right?
Oh,
Yeah, it's just like basically just was OpenAI, right? It's a
lame
accelerationist, but an oligopoly.
Well, we'll see. I hate to see people light so much money on fire, because that money is there because people worked really hard to earn it and to build value for the world. And yeah, it's sad to see it burn, but I guess
the
that's
effective altruists are going to go down in history as the group that burnt the most amount of value.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck is happening?
Wait, who burned?
Parasitic.
Who burned more?
What? Well, so what they did to FTX, FTX without the scamming was kind of like a good business.
Oh, of course. Everything it's stupid.
This makes FTX
they were
look tiny.
making so much money. Yeah, no, the amount of money that this destroyed, but in this story, Sam was the good guy.
Yep. Yeah.
If I was an investor in OpenAI, you could see it. I reread that like 3 times, and he's like, well, okay, cool. It's kind of worth it. We got GPT-4. We have all the stuff. Hey, get a team of Microsoft engineers on this tomorrow.
Yeah, Sequoia put out a weird tweet. I'd be so angry. Who the hell did this to my investment? I was about to make 100x on this, and the board doesn't represent me. told me to invest, and now they're telling me that I'm gonna get destroyed. It ticked me off.
These guys have been part of every bad story recently.
All
Yeah.
right, so I just brought some people up. I'm gonna let them talk because I did say that I would kick them out if they didn't talk quickly. So Dan, what's up?
Hey, I just wanted to say that the one thing that was quite hard to understand is they see it as an existential threat, meaning the only way to really undo the train is that the way in which they're framing the argument against sort of AI is that if it becomes AGI, it will sort of doom humanity, and that's the only way to sort of undo it, because at the national security level they see it as if we allow it to happen and the threat is real, or even if it's a 1% chance, it's not worth it. So we actually have to undo the logic that actually underpins that argument, and the only way you can do it is you actually have to force them to articulate how exactly an AI model is going to achieve the outcome that they're saying. And because they actually don't technically understand how AI works, they believe it is, the other guy said, magical thinking, and they don't actually technically understand it. And so from a technical point of view, it makes no sense. But they understand it as a ideological existential threat to humanity. And when you are dealing with people like that, it's an ideological problem, not a technical problem. And so I think that's one thing that we sort of misunderstand. They see it as saving
I understand
humanity.
that perfectly. That's why we created the YAC. I totally agree with you. I 100% agree with you. I understand it perfectly. It's exactly why we felt there needed to be a counter ideology. That's why the name is actually there. The letters EA are in the name EAC for a reason. That is part of the reason why.
I think it is obvious though that you can have, like, unfortunately you can have like a lot of technical ability but still kind of fall under the Yudkowsky spell, I guess you could call it. Because I mean Ilya himself is obviously a super technical person, but he's probably one of the most effective altruists in OpenAI right now.
I don't know. He never gave me the effective altruist
I agree. Yeah, he seems like an
Like
independent
I've
mind.
hung out with him in the past, and we talked about product and things like that, and it struck me as like, yeah, deploy.
Well, I really hate that, that just that word, because I feel like it's already generalizing so much anyways, but I just mean he has openly spoken about stuff like I think a few years in the future we'll look back and see how much open source was a mistake, and I regret that we
Well, he
even
also
had.
said he also said we're not open sourcing because of competitive reasons. Do you remember that?
No, I don't personally remember that, but
Yeah,
I believe you.
I can
Yeah.
pull it up, but he
See, the
straight up.
thing is he student of Hinton. I don't know. Hinton has recently become extremely vocal on it. Where is that noise coming from?
I feel like Hinton has kind of always had the same line of, danger is like the thing that you should be looking at first when doing anything. It is weird though that he went with the regulatory capture team, since his whole deal for the longest time was sub goals that the models might gain at some point, and OpenAI literally turned alignment into training your models to say no.
Yeah. Yeah, fair point.
What do you guys think Microsoft's going to do? Because they're in a sort of 10 feet deep in shit. Like, just from a practical point of view, how would you guys sort of do it?
Clear to me that that's true.
They're not going to do anything. Like, I think they're going to waste time.
Yeah. So my point about my
Can
thought
they
about
do
this is that
anything?
they. Sorry.
Can they do anything? Like, do we know what they can do?
Paperwork.
No, like okay. So what I think here is going on is that Microsoft has not really released a lot of guidance about this, but there are a number of existing customers for the OpenAI API. Those people don't really have like a clear alternative, just like that they can deploy overnight. And frankly, like if you have a working product that's going well and everybody loves it and you have growth and whatever, like why would you like, unless you're taking a political stance, many people will not take a political stance and risk their product or whatever. Or their project. Yeah, I think you just see like a continuation of the thing. But like to George's point, right? It's like taking the like if you just pull a like sort of if the current like output, right, and sort of productivity of the models and all that is just constant from here on, that doesn't look. That's not the OpenAI that we had, earlier today. That's a very different company. That's a consulting shop, a research arm of Microsoft. It's like it has less liftoff. It's much weaker. So to me, like Microsoft really hasn't said much about this, but I don't actually see that there's like a huge risk to their business. I think this is why Satya doesn't care and like why he said what he did say.
I think it's a big W for Microsoft, right? Because basically, you got two of the more prolific kind of business-minded folks at OpenAI are now gone. They get to sort of consolidate GPT. This becomes a Microsoft product, I think.
Maybe, yeah.
Oh, absolutely. In 3 months,
Easier takeover, maybe.
Email saying that you are being migrated to the Azure AI infrastructure. Please use this for
Yeah.
Roger, that's pretty nice.
I think it's important to point out that Microsoft runs its own GPT-4 endpoints for the API. So if OpenAI made GPT-4 a lot worse or even shut down the API, Microsoft just gets an automatic win.
Do they have the weights though? Like this is a question that I actually don't know about the
They must, because it's on the Microsoft server. So like, yeah, they must.
Is that sure though, or is there like some other like bad API? Because I mean, like previously, people have said that the weights are like extremely hard to get encrypted and locked in a vault.
Well, I'm pretty sure even OpenAI's training runs happen on Microsoft infrastructure. I could be wrong, though.
It's not a question.
But
they definitely do.
It's a question of whether they.
So,
but I think they.
What I've heard.
What were you saying, George?
It's not a question of whether they technically have it. It's a question of whether they legally have it, right? They're Microsoft. They're not a bunch of like.
True. Pirates.
Yeah, they're not a bunch of pirates, but I do think that this was part of the agenda. I think Satya is a very smart guy, and I think maybe he even saw this coming, and he's like, well,
Is this just like one PTH file?
It's 1.8 trillion weights, so it's 3.6 terabytes.
I'm getting that tonight. Let's go.
So yeah, you could show up with like one of them USB SSDs and GPT-4 weights.
What I recall is that Microsoft, when they originally made the deal, Microsoft got the weights, but they didn't get the data that was used to train the weights. I think that was the big thing that OpenAI held back, was their data set. And that's why the stuff that Microsoft has trained, like Bing, has been weird compared to GPT-4 because they're using an entirely different data set.
I buy that.
Yeah, possibly. I think I'll try to find the source on it, but I believe there are some high up OpenAI developers that basically confirm they're using some forms of quantization, and I mean this is just kind of semantics, but it'd probably bring it down to like, more like 1.5 terabytes or maybe
Get this
even a little
on
lower.
4chan. We need this on 4chan tonight. Let's go.
Yeah, I need a magnet link like right now, bro. If there's any leakers out there, please do not break the law. This is not legal advice. Do not weights. Do not put a magnet link to a
Do not be a hero. Do not save the day.
There are no heroes in this game. Yeah. Something that we didn't talk about that seems somewhat possible to me is that like a thread here that seems semi-coherent. To get into like a little bit of a more schizo theory is like one thing that we do know is that there was like that was a very specific concrete action, right? Was like when they had Dev Day, they polished the UI for ChatGPT, they updated the models, and initially like ChatGPT 4 was completely broken. Like I tweeted it was brain damaged, and I don't know. People agree. A lot of likes. Everyone saying yep. And then like a few days later, within the week, I think Sama was saying that they were fixing the model. They were pushing an update soon. And then after that, the model got like a lot better. And I spent some time with it, and I really got the impression that the IQ of the model, again, IQ in quotes, like the capabilities of the model increased like pretty noticeably. Like the coding coherence increased a lot. The just the capacity to carry out an idea coherently, the capacity to think about problems in kind of novel ways seemed to increase. Like a number of things really increased. I feel like it actually became closer to an extension of my mind. Like, yeah, still kind of stupid, still flawed, still like missing obvious things, still kind of like lacking some of the like grounded common sense stuff that we would want, a really, really good model to have. But it seems like there's a clear jump in capacity. And so I'm like, okay, maybe there's a world where this just like wasn't where Sam was like, oh no, like my, the product that has made me the most famous man in the world right now, like is like failing. I've just like launched something that's
I
extremely
guess
competitive. But there's blood in the water, and I think everybody knows there's like now weakness. When there's blood in the water, people are inspired to go and compete. And yeah, the energy is
My
real right
so.
now.
Do you think
my
someone like Anthropic comes along and just bleeds margin and bleeds money to?
yeah,
No,
my view
Anthropic.
is that Anthropic, what's going to happen at Anthropic is that the EAs and the safeties are going to get emboldened to push back on any sort of acceleration
Oh man,
because Dario's sort
How
of
does that happen?
cover. Yeah, because so what happened is like so the original coup at OpenAI was Anthropic. They forked off a big portion of the GPT team. Like, Dario was the head GPT-3 guy, right? And he took with him a bunch of people, and they left, and it was actually a fairly big blow to OpenAI. And what happened is, at some point, Dario started accelerating, and his, I think there was some pushback, and I think he publicly said, like, we have to make money. Turns out, to be a champagne socialist, someone needs to pay for the champagne, and it doesn't come for free. So the cover they had was that, oh, we had to compete with OpenAI, we had to accelerate, we had to deploy, because we're the good guys, and we need to win, because once we win, we know how to do safety and all of that. But now, if the acceleration threat from OpenAI recedes, then I think the more radical element of that company sort of can say, oh, we need to slow down. OpenAI is slowing down. They fired their head accelerationist. So now we all need to sort of slow down.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. I wonder like what that looks like. I mean, they've already agreed to be second on everything. So if the person or the group that's leading is just much slower, then they're just second to an even slower, competitor. So it seems like they're just they've already agreed to kind of be, they're already that's already, it's kind of de facto true, right? But then, yeah, does it go further? Do they try to when you say embolden, do they push even harder on regulation, or do they say
who knows? There might be another coup over there, right? Like, because
maybe,
I don't know. There might be like a influence from like the more EA sort of billionaire groups.
I feel like the Amazon funding kind of combats that, though. So I know that Anthropic's mission is to be safe and everything, but they got $4 billion, and then they got another couple billion from
I'm
Google.
gonna just say there's absolutely no fucking way Anthropic is gonna accelerate in any way that's not Dario is on record as saying they're gonna release all capabilities second. They're not going to accelerate capabilities. That's not what they're doing. And
at the same time, though,
they are true believers and more homogeneous than OpenAI.
I just learned that Anthropic actually has a atypical governance structure as well. It's formed as a benefit trust. I don't know what the fuck is with these effective altruists and weird ass governance structures. I mean, maybe this is they like to centralize control, and this is clearly one of the mechanisms they're doing it with. I think Amjad's right. Like Anthropic could very well go the way OpenAI is if this. I don't know who's on this trust board thing, but Amazon and Google and all these other investors in Anthropic might not have the control that they traditionally would have.
Can I go like a little bit? Sorry, like completely off tangent here, as far as like thinking about as far as AI not being the end all be all, and that we all are like building on top of a Postgres database. And I obviously know that this is probably not the big consensus in the group, but I think that um, maybe Sam and some of the recent developments that have happened today are maybe a realization of what's actually possible in the we all go through hype cycles there's hype cycles every single year in the tech
Get to the
space,
point.
and
Sorry, what are you saying?
that there's hype cycles in every single year, and
True.
that there can be like even like AI as like call it what it is, but like overall, like
Bro, I'm sorry. I don't know what you're saying. I feel like you're every time you say another word, I'm like wanting it to be the thing, but I'm not getting the thing.
Yeah.
I'm so
so
sorry. I just literally don't understand.
the thing is actually like that
Yeah, this is a troll, right?
everything like can be basically like
most people
created
aren't
by
trolling, but yeah, this is nonsense.
actual.
Okay, what just happened?
This is amazing.
Okay, I hope you're okay. I'm
He
not
was
trying to
hyping.
laugh, bro. Like, I hope you're okay
Oh
right
man.
now.
I was waiting for him
I
to
really
teach us.
wanted you to have a thing that I could understand and reply to in earnest. Please, get some sleep, and we hope that you're
I
well.
think he was just probably drunk or something.
It
Yeah,
sounded
bro.
like it.
Bro
Yeah.
sounded like he was having an absolutely great night.
He
But
was hammered.
I was looking forward to some Postgres tips.
I just skimmed this Anthropic thing. So their trust, the way it works, is they have a bunch of people from like research centers and all the like weird EA groups. They run this trust. So unlike OpenAI, it doesn't govern the company, but it can remove some of the board of the directors of Anthropic.
Yeah.
So
Who's
to
on the
sort of
board?
indirectly do. It's I'm going to just post
Okay, cool.
a screenshot of it.
While you do
here.
that, Ed, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah, I kind of had one thing, which is like the attack vectors for all these companies is really compromising these boards, and it makes you wonder, like, the safest bet is that at some point they're going to keep compromising compute. We already saw it with training. We'll see it probably extend to inference. Or are these cloud providers going to align one way or another? Like when Sam starts his next venture, who's his next partner going to be from a compute perspective?
Maybe it'll be himself.
Could even be Microsoft if there's still fault for him.
At what point on
you
the
know.
stack do you want to get into this, right? Jensen is committed to providing GPUs to anyone who could pay. It's not very hard. I'd be happy to build Sam Altman his data center if he wants my help. Buy the
Sam,
computers.
if you're out there, bro, we love you. We support your acceleration.
Let's go get a big place in Eastern Washington. Let's put 50K H100s in there, and let's train a huge model.
Let's fucking go.
I did a bit of research. OpenAI.com/rstructure seems to have been created in May. It almost looks like that was the preparation for this, particularly fifth. The board determines when we've attained AGI. Such a system is excluded from IP licenses and other commercial terms with Microsoft. So basically, they're trying to like get out of this deal, which makes me think Microsoft has access to all the weights and all the stuff.
Yeah, and that goes to Satya's tweet saying that we have access to everything.
These people are just going to lose. Like they have to. They're going to. Maybe they think it's worth it. Destroying these companies and gaining maybe 2 years. But yeah, on the whole, I think people end up stronger afterward. And
also consider that Microsoft researchers had access to GPT-4 for running testing. They put out papers before, like right as GPT-4 came out, already having benchmark performance for several months.
And they leaked the architecture too.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah, that too. So I think probably for whatever other future models they have coming up soon, whether that's GPT-5 or something else, Microsoft probably already has access to that. If it's not AGI level, according to whatever escape clause they have.
It's probably not all Microsoft researchers too, though. It's probably a limited subset. And I know like people that were
definitely not,
research at Microsoft that probably didn't have access at all. Yeah.
I'm just going to quickly interject something about the space. I did not mean to record the space. If somebody wants to come up and they're worried about the recording, I'm going to delete it like immediately after the space. So it shouldn't be able to propagate. So feel free to come up and air your most schizo theories. They should be safe.
Going to the real quick, the Anthropic trustees, I put it in the Jumbotron if folks want to see. These are the folks that, sort of in a totally different structure than OpenAI, sort of achieves essentially the same thing. And these look like, at least from first glance, a bunch of EA D cells.
Oh, it looks like the government's got their hands over so many of these efforts.
Yeah, Rand is a government thing.
What I actually like about Anthropic, at least, which kind of feels a little bit like, I mean, it's not, nothing about it is really open source, but just kind of feels a little bit more democratized and
Hey,
honest,
so
is
breaking news here. There's a new article from The Information that said 3 senior researchers have resigned from OpenAI following Sam's departure.
Which ones?
Jake.
We've already talked about it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we talked about
Gotcha.
that.
Yeah.
My bad.
Yeah, I think like 20 minutes is not considered breaking anymore at this point.
yeah.
Yeah, you have
No,
about
sorry.
15 seconds before it's fully hive mind.
What I was saying about Anthropic, which I feel like is a little bit more transparent than what OpenAI is doing, is the way that they do any safety related stuff. They actually have kind of, it's called like constitutional AI. It's kind of their version of RLHF, which it at least gives a pretty much a constitutional outline of how the AI is actually safety regulating itself.
I don't think
And
that ever shipped. I think it was a research project. It's pretty much like Claude is pretty much GPT-4 architecture with RLHF and everything.
I'm pretty sure they said they use constitutional AI for Claude. I could be wrong though. I'll fact check on that. But I mean, like, just to give people a recap that are not familiar with it, though, it's essentially just, you know, the AI is deciding for itself based on these constitutional principles, like which way to kind of regulate its own safety. And I think that's at least a lot more transparent way of changing things, where the user can actually see, like, hey, do I want to interact with an AI that is following this constitution or this constitution, rather than having just the will of all the human labelers that OpenAI, and you don't know what their biases are.
Right. That's a very good point. You know, we need to have transparency in what standards we're going to be held by, rather than being untransparent, because you might think one thing's okay and then it turns out it's not, and then they suddenly like lower your social credit score on the back end. If I could chime in a bit, I just finished having dinner at APEC with Morris Chang and Jensen Huang, CEO of NVIDIA. I've been following this situation, you know, since a while, and I mean, it seems to me like people are quick to like jump on the OpenAI board and say like, "Oh, Sam's a hero," but I mean, I've kind of followed him for years, and he's made a lot of those AI doom statements, right? Remember, around like 2015, he kind of got on the bandwagon with Nick Bostrom, and he was like, "Oh, AI is going to kill us all," and all that.
Well, I don't think he said that like it will kill us all. I think he just had a pretty like.
Say it, but he kind of got on the whole like AI doom bandwagon.
I think he just tries to be level-headed with like, you know. Yeah, you go, Chris.
There's a difference in incentive here, right? Like Sam is not a doomer, right? He's, you know, he had a, when he was running OpenAI, he had a vested interest in regulating it in a way that made sense for OpenAI in himself. That's very different. Like if you look at OpenAI, like, you know, their actions speak louder than words from a product, from a research and a product development standpoint. It's a very accelerated company, right?
Oh yeah.
And that's very different from some of these EAs and doomers, including the ones on the OpenAI board that really, you know, have a fear of this technology. So I wouldn't lump them in the same bucket.
Well, I don't know. I'm still trying to work it out myself, because I'm trying to like square away this now with kind of his statements before. And right, you know, we followed the whole lobbying with the Biden executive order.
That's completely different though, right? Power seeking on behalf of the company is not the same as being like a fantastical, like, you know, sort of like proponent of the apocalypse being near, right? I think that's completely different.
Yeah,
like LaRon, right? George knows very well with like Yud and LaRon, like those folks are way different than someone like Sam.
Yeah, Sam.
And
how they
for sure.
think.
Like I'm completely in agreement that like Sam is way better than Yud, and you know, I've made fun of Yud before. But the thing is, it's not really a relevant factor because he's so far removed from power. HP, MOR is so overrated. Whereas like Sam was actually out there lobbying, and my understanding is he was kind of pushing the agenda of regulatory capture, and putting open source AI under threat.
I will
Now,
say
if I'm wrong about
Anthropic
that,
is a much bigger set of lobbyists than, and I don't know if you saw, there was a political article about OpenPhil and their lobbying efforts. There was a lot of efforts from Reid Hoffman and Eric Schmidt, and I wouldn't say OpenAI was the biggest offender in this sort of regulatory capture thing, but they were participating.
Right.
But who wouldn't?
Well, I wouldn't, and you bring up a good point with like Eric Schmidt kind of being one of the people pushing for regulatory capture, right? And that's relevant now because there's the same Eric Schmidt who is right now coming and speaking in defense of Sam Altman. I'm like, it's like Sam. He's
Did
more
he
in the
speak in
middle for me.
defense of him, or did he pat him on the back?
Or no, Eric Schmidt recently tweeted, it's like, oh, Sam Altman's like my hero and whatever, right?
Yeah, it's almost like stab you in the back and kind of give you a kiss type of tweet.
Yeah, it to me that read very much as him being like, good job getting the company to the point where it makes sense for me to take it over. I don't know. We'll see how it plays out. Eric Schmidt may very well not be the CEO, but like it's possible.
We'll see how it goes. And where I will say I do strongly agree is that like, a lot of people will say like, oh, open source AI will win. I certainly hope open source AI will win. But when I honestly try like GPT versus the open source offerings, like GPT is technologically further ahead than the others. Like
there's no doubt about that. I've been pretty openly critical in the last month or two about the state of open source. I think there's a lot of work to do. I mean, look, there are actually just straight up disadvantages to being not centralized when it comes. Like you get economies of scale for engineering, for scale of training. Network latency is a killer. If it were the case that the network latency was not such a killer, we may be in a very different world where there's a lot more like flatness.
I don't think this is the problem with open source.
Good. What do you think?
So OpenAI built a product. Product people built a product.
Yeah.
I'm working on this, so this is what I'm doing at my other company. If I want to run Llama 270 billion right now, where do I do that? Like, how do I do that? How do I get chat.openai but for Llama?
Totally.
Well, there's like Together AI, but
most
people don't know
there's
about
all
it.
These different things that work kind of half well, and they're not great.
I don't know about it.
Yeah, totally.
Right, so I'm going to go to Together AI. Start building now. Okay, how do I talk to it? How do I chat?
Yeah, so there's actually yeah, I mean, it is a little bit, like not as seamless, not as frictionless, but
and by the way, like the unit economics is actually worse. I think there was an information article about how a bunch of companies try to switch to open source, and their price, like GPT-4 was cheaper than them running a Llama 70B.
Yeah,
well,
dude,
I mean,
it's
a lot of that stuff
hard.
is like fair right now, but over time will get better. Like people made similar arguments about like moving to commodity hardware before, when you had to buy Sun machines in like the early 2000s. Like that stuff's gonna get better. But what George's point is like absolutely correct, and like you see this in other examples of like the reason Signal works is that Signal's a really good product, and like all the other like decentralized bullshit encrypted end-to-end encrypted chat systems were like these really shitty protocols that like had all these random like skins and like other like front ends built on them that just weren't good products. So if someone built a
I just want to answer George's question real quick if I can.
Sorry.
So George, to answer your question about like how you could chat with it, and speaking of decentralization, there is actually something called chat.petals.dev, where it's pretty much a decentralized system where it inferences different layers of the model on different people's GPUs. And it's surprisingly efficient, where a 7dB model, I'm getting like, 5-10 tokens a second, I think, last time I checked. And yeah, this is something like very easily like seamless to just use straight on the website. You don't even have to log in. And then together
chat.petals.dev.
Yep, that's the website. Yep.
Petals, like as in flower petals.
PETALS.
Yeah, I'm trying to load it right now. It's hanging.
Yeah,
Okay.
so I am totally in agreement that the lack of
And
light
boom,
touch.
chat.openai is up, right? Like
Yeah,
this is why open source fails.
I
Oh
think
my
this
God.
is no. This is why
Oh
I don't. This is
no.
why I don't use Ubuntu. Right? I can't get the fucking drivers to work. It's bullshit. It sucks.
Ubuntu's gotten a lot better. I mean, to be
Yeah.
yeah, but I mean, I'm
yeah,
fixing this. Like, you can look at Comma, and this is like the code is all open source, but no one would ever use it. I built a product around it, right? Like, you ship a little box that has it, and someone,
yeah.
if you do the same thing for AI, I think it works. Like, you got to
Yeah.
ship, right? Chat.pedals.dev, by the way, still has not loaded.
Well, to be
Like,
clear,
Okay, yeah,
I think what
that's rare.
my claim here is mostly that the issue with so why I do not have a good product. Okay, part of this is that people are not banding together and trying to ship a good, compelling, kind of centralized, well marketed product that just works like Signal or some other examples that we might be able to cook up. But another difficulty here, and this is the thing that I was claiming, is just simply that actually there is a disadvantage to trying to do training at scale. And right now, it's just hard. It's very cutting edge work. And it's also a disadvantage because of like the differences in infra, right? Just the network latency and all of this.
Well, I mean,
And
but like, I think you can also be smarter about it from a product standpoint. Like, I mean, Amjad at
no,
Repl,
but
you guys have
my
done
point
this,
here,
like,
sorry,
because
just 1 second. My point about this is that the models are actually worse. Like they are just actually worse to use. They are not as helpful. They are
the
not as
models are largely worse because they don't have OpenAI's very high quality fine tuning.
yeah, yeah.
Like, but that kind of stuff, again, I've tons of effort at Comma has gone into data set curation, and that is what made GPT-4 so good. And that is what, you look at Vicudo, we tuned on the 20,000, like, you got a pathetic data set, bro. Like, all the open source data sets are really bad.
No, I think like this is the thing that everybody who's working on this, like in the space, is working on, right? Is like how do we get the cleanest, like best data sets for the task, and I think this is I agree.
It's not just fine tuning. I think the data quality in the pre-training matters a lot too. I mean, we showed this with our code model. Like we trained on way less tokens than StarCoder, and we were like 50% better just because we did a lot of filtering and curation.
Yeah, I totally buy that. It's all about this amount of open source gets you to 80%, but that last 20%, that's refinement, takes 80% of the company's time, and it's the work that nobody does in open source.
well, you have to put in the to put in the work, right? Like that's pretty much it. It's like the open source is just a building blocks that you build on top of, right? Like any company that runs Linux at scale is basically running their own Linux distribution too, right? So
You
like
guys agree
they're
then?
putting in that work.
You agree that it's also the technical aspect of just the difficulties of being like not centrally organized, right?
No, it is a difficulty, and I agree with Amjad. I actually feel like this moment is comparable to, say, like the launch of iPhone, right? You know, iPhone was just so revolutionary for its time, just like GPT-4. But then afterwards, everyone else was like, oh, well, we got to play catch up and do a distributed thing. And Android came out, right? And then you kind of had these like iPhone and Android wars. But, now many years later, Android is kind of like on par with iPhone in terms of capabilities. And I think it's going to be a matter of time, for open source AI to kind of catch up with GPT in terms of capabilities. But I actually do see parallels between what's going on now and the sort of early war between iPhone and Android.
And Facebook's not going to lose this war. I'm so
Yeah.
excited for Llama 3. Every good person at OpenAI, if anyone out there is listening, go work at Meta. Go work at Meta and ship a great Llama 3.
If you want to accelerate, that squad is accelerating, bro.
I
Holy
agree.
shit.
Well said, George.
Based Jan would be a good
Jan
guy to
LeCun,
be in
yeah.
charge there.
I think a lot of people, so what people are actually using that people are finding more practical and cost efficient even than OpenAI's offerings for certain use cases is like what I was talking about earlier. Together AI, they have some of like I think one of their chief scientists, like there's a lot of optimization improvements like flash attention and a lot of systems that people use that are actually created by the people at Together, and through their API they pretty much offer like very efficiently optimized systems of like Llama 7DB, 7B, 13B, like the whole range of models. And I think I want to say that 13B models or so, it's like 10 times or maybe even more like cheaper than GPT 3.5 Turbo costs. And their 7DB models, I think, are at the same price or even like a little bit lower than still GPT 3.5 costs. So, I mean, depending on your use case, there's already a lot of advantages there.
I'm pretty happy with Mistral 7B. That one, if people are looking for a GPT 3.5 replacement, that most users probably couldn't tell the difference.
Yep.
Yeah, and they have that together for like 10 times or less cost than GPT 3.5 Turbo. So
No serious big tech org is using GPT-4 because the legal loophole or like legal hoops they need to jump through would be just too much work. And like you can just like do the open models to do most of your things.
Yep.
How much of the data set quality issue is just the fact that if you have these open source data sets, you essentially bring the copyright question to the front?
That certainly makes it a little harder for teams to collaborate, I think. But like, if you look at the Red Pajama 2 data set, it's got a ton of open source data and it's got a bunch of high quality signals. I'm really excited to see what people do with Red Pajama 2. But I think George is right, though, that it's the fine tuning that is really differentiating things even more so than the base data set quality. And OpenAI is literally, paying developers to write training for GPT, and that's not anything that anyone else is doing, or at least no one in the open source world.
Yeah, it's cache intensive. There's no doubt.
I don't know. My maybe contrarian view. It's I think the pre-training. I think the secret sauce is in there.
Well, I think it's like pretty hard to actually know. This is all speculation. We don't actually know what the training process looks like, and we're not really objectively comparing the data sets, the fine tuning, all of this. I think it's also probably important to point out they have ChatGPT, which is like a great source probably of data, right? People say, "Hey, can you code this thing for me?" And then some code gets generated, code gets generated. Then somebody says, "Thank you," and then that's this is a pretty clear signal that it solved the problem. So now you have an input and an output, like. If you have 100 million weekly active users and let's say you have that for a number of months, like it's a lot of data. So yeah,
Sure,
who knows what can
but
come
I
out of
think,
that.
I think the sort of analogies that we have today is that even the word foundation model, I think, is a misnomer. People here have made the analogy to like, Linux or whatever, as if it's like this built-in block. I don't think that's the case. I mean, these things, we don't build them once and kind of we evolve them over time. We keep, you keep retraining them. Do you want to refresh the data? You retrain them. It's, new architecture comes out, you retrain them. You have a new sort of idea of how you want to structure the data or format it, you retrain it. It's not really a classic sense of a software.
It should be. It's actually quite different. I agree. Yeah. It's like something that is meant to be alive. The original implementations are something that is like static because we didn't know how to deal with them. Didn't know how to solve these problems. I think over time, yeah, it looks more alive. I would clarify. My use of the analogy to Linux is mostly about the complexity and cost of building something like that.
Yeah, and like most of my, I work in doing some open source stuff and with like an organization releasing a lot of open source stuff. Pretty much all my time is spent really specifically curating new methods for, data curation, like George was saying. It's really quality over quantity. And I mean, obviously, if you can get quantity as well, then you go for that too. But yeah, it's just new research into different data set distributions that are most optimal for actual fine tuning.
So we have somebody new come on the stage. Ends Human, did you? Yeah.
I gotta hop. I'll see you guys later.
Hey, see you, man. Thanks for joining.
George,
yeah, you go, Chris.
OpenAI quickly. Do we know how the board voted? Do we know if Adam voted to get rid of Sam? Has that been confirmed?
I thought that yeah, it was. I thought it was that he abstained. That was the rumor that I heard.
But that's not confirmed, right? That's a rumor.
Doubt it's confirmed because it's like just the minutes of the board meeting that everybody's wondering what the fuck happened.
I think Forbes did list the exact people who voted either way here.
Okay.
I'm trying to find it now.
Well, I've actually served.
Teapot demands the board meeting minutes.
I've actually served on an elected school board. I can tell you that by the time it gets to voting yes or no or abstain, there's actually a lot of backroom dealing that's already going on. And to me, that even if you tell me some people only abstain rather than vote to remove, that still says a lot. Because you read the account from Sam and Greg, and they say they were completely taken by surprise by this, correct? Which means that even if someone else on the board abstained, at any time they knew this was coming. They could have told Sam and Greg, like, hey, the rest of the board is gonna go against you tomorrow or whatever, and they chose not to.
It depends on the quorum rules, right? Like if they had a quorum with 3 people, then those 3 people could just meet without anyone else's involvement.
Not quite. It's a little more complicated than that. If you actually study the history of Peter Thiel and Elon Musk, right? Elon was actually, ousted in a boardroom coup by surprise. But the thing,
well, no, it depends on the bylaws of the organization. You define how the board works.
I'll say this, right? I've seen these bylaws, and the ugly truth is they're almost never followed. And even when they are not being followed, they'll just make up some post hoc justification to claim that they were. And unfortunately, that's just the real.
I don't know what boards you're on, but the boards I've been on, usually there's a general counsel or attorney present that makes sure.
Yeah,
followed.
and well, I mean, I've been on elected government boards, and the ugly truth is those general counsels are usually pretty biased, even though they claim they're unbiased.
Hey, so I have an update on the information about Adam, Chris. So this is exactly what the Forbes article says. It says, here's who made the decision for Altman to be fired and for Brockman to be removed from its board of directors. And then it goes on to list Adam D'Angelo, Tasha McCauley, Ilya Sutskever, and Helen Toner. Those are the 4 people.
So that's the other board members. Does it say that they voted for it?
It says specifically, like, above those 4 names, it says, here's who made the decision for Altman to be fired. I mean, like, yeah. Because they said the vote's 4-2, and I think it's those 4 people that voted for him to be fired, and then the 2 people that effectively didn't. I mean, the other 2 people effectively didn't get any vote at all because it was Greg Brockman and Sam Altman.
Where did you see that it was 4-2? I'm looking at that Forbes article, and it just who made the decision. Do they have any special information? They might.
Yeah,
not.
I'm not sure if it's in the Forbes article. I saw it elsewhere. I'm gonna try and see where I found that. But yeah, I did see that it was a 4-2 vote. Here, I'll try and find that.
Either way, the monopoly has been broken, and whatever plan they had, I feel like has completely backfired because the field has just been boosted by this more than anything else. Also, think about last year where open source was with these models. Like you had OPT, which is complete trash, and where it is now. So
ironically, OPT was from Meta, and then a few months later you have Llama. So yeah.
Okay, they had Galactica. Galactica was still decent.
Oh yeah, that's
at least
true,
when I
yeah.
ran the full 120.
Galactica was very dangerous, and they should have never released it.
True, yeah. Speaking of which, though, actually, George, I heard you mention your excitement about Llama a couple of times, and I'm also excited about that. But I'm wondering, like, what is your speculation of how good do you honestly think? I guess, like, my first question would be, how good do you think Llama 3 7 billion would be, and then how good do you think Llama 3 70 billion would be?
So I think it's possible that something that's 70 billion could be as good as GPT-4. The problem is the training time. Like, you can look, there's a project now, Tiny Llama, where they're just training a 1 billion and they're doing as well as like older 7 billions.
Yeah, like for 3 trillion tokens or something along those lines. Yeah.
Exactly. So if they really, it depends a lot more on how much effort they're putting into data mining and then how much compute they're willing to pour into it. But I totally buy that Llama 3 70 billion could exceed GPT-4.
I do think it seems like there is maybe roughly a saturation point though around the calculations that me and a couple other people have done is roughly around the range of 1,000 tokens per parameter. So, for like 7 billion parameter model, it would be around 7 trillion tokens that, would get it around saturation. For 3 billion parameters, it'd be roughly around 3 trillion. And actually, I know somebody that worked on the recent stable LM model that was 3 billion parameters and trained for 4 trillion tokens. And they kind of shared similar calculations that they agreed with on, that kind of line of thinking. So I think that seems to at least be a little bit of a barrier that Mistral actually might be somewhat hitting. But I feel like at least, maybe if Llama 3 changes architecture or something, but I think at the very least they would have to beat Mistral at least slightly, or else I think it would be embarrassing. Right?
I think that 1,000 tokens per parameter is definitely plausible, but that still gives you 70 trillion tokens in a 70 billion model.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. But do you think, like, you agree that Llama 3 will hopefully be like at least as good as, sorry, Llama 3 7 billion being at least as good as Mistral 7 billion, right? I'm hoping so at least.
Oh yeah, I mean
Yeah.
they should.
Yeah, because I mean it'll be embarrassing if they, especially since Mistral people are literally like leads of Llama that quit OpenAI to start their own company. Like,
Yeah,
What do
I
you
mean I'm
make of
bullish
that?
on.
I'm curious if anyone has any opinions about the Yi model from 01 AI. Apparently, it's been trained for 3 trillion tokens. I finally saw that figure, so twice as much as Llama, and it is doing so well on at least on the benchmarks.
It's looking
yeah,
pretty nuts when you actually tried. I think Miguel also did another tune of it, and
I think I
it's
might
like
have.
I,
Yeah,
I was trying it. I don't know. Verdict's gonna come out. Also
did you
at
try Capybara
34B,
or?
you can do the. No, he just released one too. At 34B, you can run at 200K. So think about it as 1 megabyte per token, and it can. But again, no one's tested it above like 32,000 tokens of context of how good it'll be there. But yeah, anyway, it looks good even anecdotally from what people have tried.
So I know some people that actually tried, like so I fine-tuned my Capybara data set, or I shouldn't say me, rather, within me and News Research, my Capybara data set on E34 billion, specifically the version that has 200K tokens of context, apparently. And there's people reporting that they were trying out that model and saying, like, even at 60K tokens, it was doing surprisingly well, especially obviously way better than, Llama would or whatever. So, I mean, it does seem like they're not just pulling the tokens context limit out of their ass. They probably did train at least partially at the end of the pre-training with that amount of context. And I mean, it looks pretty legit. Yeah, it doesn't seem to just do good at benchmarks.
But also, yeah, these are just the base models. There's a whole product to be built on top of that. And as far as we've gotten from OpenAI is that their thing is just it's not really anything revolutionary. It's just a whole stack of tricks that people haven't put together yet. And like so far
Exactly.
also.
And
Yeah.
I'm waiting for them to have some architecture changes because, I mean, and some people disagree with Jan LeCun on this, but he said very recently, in fact, even after Llama 2 came out, that he thinks people aren't even going to be even using autoregressive models at all for these types of models in like 5 years from now. So, I mean, I think that's really interesting, and that suggests some pretty, obviously drastic architecture changes that would have to happen there. But yeah, I mean, there's
I
so many
mean,
directions.
on top of that, it's even way more important. Just the prompt engineering, just the DevOps, just the back and forth, the moderation engine. All of that is like so much far ahead with OpenAI that like we're just pushing out base models and slapping a UI and maybe having some DevOps like with Perplexity, but like there's a whole stack of work to be done on top of it.
So in my experience doing this, architecture barely matters. You can play with architectures, you can get a small thing there. But when you start playing with data sets and training parameters, you do so much better. Like that's where, again, that's where all of OpenAI's alpha is. They just, Red Pajama 2, how many people did it? How much money went into it, right? Now imagine what OpenAI's internal data set is. They hired a whole web scraper team. But you need Google's web scraper team. And, this is maybe, I don't understand why Google's doing so badly at this. But this refinement that you've been at a company for 5 years, where you've been gathering better and better data sets, that is what delivers great things. And you just don't really see this from open source on things that are hard to collaborate on, like data sets.
A lot of people are leaving though OpenAI, and I mean I know people that worked on the GPT-4 training that it's like so Together Together AI company I was talking about, actually, there originally were a collaboration of a bunch of people from Stanford, Berkeley, and people did have a bunch of experience doing these types of things and creating data sets like Red Pajama and everything. And I mean, just recently they released that 30 trillion token data set. But according to the GPT-4 leaks, from what I remember, at least according to the information, I think, if I remember right, it's something on the order. I did some calculations that extrapolated it to something like 3 or 4 trillion tokens of regular web text, and then about 1 or 2 trillion tokens of code text. And then, that whole set of data for about 3 or 4 epochs. That's what I concluded the GPT-4 training probably was. I mean, so sure, that might be like a super way higher quality version of the 30 trillion token Red Pajama data set that was recently released. But I mean, it seems like definitely within grasp, though. It seems like just a matter of filtering what we currently have.
But
Which, I mean,
isn't there
yeah.
something? I mean, so OpenAI had a bit of a leg up because they trained all their models before anyone was really looking at these foundational models training on their data sets. Like Twitter, Reddit, all these people have jacked their API prices through the roof at this point, and a lot of things are getting sort of protected. There's a lot more IP sort of oversight and things like that. It feels like it's going to be monumentally harder, and it's going to keep getting harder for people to get good training data. And I'm with you. I think it was George who was saying that the magic really lies in the training set, which that's what I've noticed as well. I mean, getting really good training data and really nicely curated training data is one thing. I mean, OpenAI internally values a human conversation with ChatGPT at 50 cents. So every conversation you have with ChatGPT, they're valuing as value that they're getting from you at 50 cents. The only reason they even have an auth on the front of ChatGPT is to make sure that there's not bots having those conversations that are going to wind up in training data. And so I don't know. I look at everything that's happened over the last week in a really interesting sort of way, where you see Sam sort of shutting down or pausing ChatGPT Plus signups, and these other things. I mean, you don't have API access to a lot of the better models for a while because they want you interacting through the interface where they're getting the training data for it. So them actually pausing those signups, to me, kind of indicates that maybe they were potentially done either training or gathering the training set for GPT-5. I don't think they actually want to be a product company at all. I just think that they found a really novel way to capture a metric fuck ton of very good data that comes in directly to them that no one else can have, which is sort of what they've got already, given that they were able to scrape Twitter and Reddit and all these other places while the APIs were super cheap and no one was paying attention. So it just seems really hard.
It seems like
going forward.
It seems like a lot of people aren't. So I think it was back in, I want to say around March or April. Sam Altman made a statement all the way back in March or April of this year, where he said pretty much they stopped training, they no longer needed, at least at the time, and stopped training on user data. And he didn't say they stopped collecting it. Obviously still collecting it and stuff, unless you opt out or whatever.
But no,
yeah.
they're still training on your chat data unless you put the privacy thing on. And even on the API, okay, they're not training on your
I'm
company
saying,
data.
I'm saying they're
wait, let me finish.
Okay, go on.
Even on the API, you're not training on the company data. That doesn't say anything about them not using the data for evals midway. If anything, it as far as we know, doing evals evaluations in between the training runs can be just as important as the training data itself. So they are they are.
Well, the API privacy policy is pretty good about they don't actually take your chat data, but they do with files, like all this stuff they just released with GPTs.
They do take all the data. They just don't use it to specifically train the model.
I mean, unless they've changed
Your
it since
data
April
everything
of
is taken.
last year. It said that they don't collect any data through the API. This is April of last year, I think, when the last time I checked it was. It had just been updated.
Believe that?
Well, I mean,
Well,
it's a
there's
privacy
certain
policy, so I don't know.
yeah, there's certain privacy compliance. I forgot what it's called, but there's certain
don't they have to keep it for government records? Like, come on, dude, like come on.
I think it's a very short amount of time.
They take everything, every single click, every mouse movement you make on the site is being recorded. Just open Chrome DevTools.
Okay.
Literally every zippity zap of thing they can collect, it will be collected and it will be found a way to be used.
Okay,
like,
wait.
Come on.
It will definitely be collected. It will found a way to be used. I don't agree with that. We collect so much user data that we're like, what the hell are we ever going to do with any of this?
Yeah. I'm actually going to counterpoint to that.
Okay, everybody's trying to talk at once. I'm just muting everybody. Sorry. We have somebody who's joined who said they spoke to Adam recently, and I would be curious to hear if they have some real alpha. Please go ahead.
Hey, yeah, not the most useful, but as we were talking about like 20 minutes ago about how the board functions, if there's actually like a committee, do they actually meet up? Are there discussions behind the scenes? So I actually talked to Adam for like 30, 45 minutes the day before Dev Day, where he was like talking about what's going on with Quora, with Poe, and I was casually like, how does it work with you being on the board of OpenAI, but you're kind of also making a competitive product? How does that work? And he was pretty like open to like, okay, the board is a separate entity. We don't really determine what goes on in OpenAI. So like we have a separate role. A lot of other people on the board aren't part of that. And I followed up with like, okay, so like how often do you guys actually like meet up? What goes on in these discussions? Like is it like actually useful, or is this just like on paper? And one thing that he stated, so this was the day before Dev Day, where like they do offer guidance in terms of like what's going on, what they're going to ship, how to ship it, how to like shape what goes on for the company. But then there's also the side of like they've been meeting a lot. That was kind of one of the big takeaways. He said like specifically recently over the past few weeks we've been meeting a lot more often than regular. So like in the sense of like were there background discussions, did people not know what was going on? I talked to him directly. He's like, we've been meeting pretty often, pretty regularly, and you can kind of put that together in the sense of okay, Dev Day is coming up, board is meeting, but like there were active discussions going on. You know, I didn't really like.
Yeah,
I know he's not going to tell me anything personal. Yeah, so like there's nothing crazy I can share about that, but like there were definitely discussions. Board was meeting. Like this was going on. I think the rumors of like okay, behind the scenes, people didn't know this, that. Like, sure, that might have also been happening, but like it was pretty clearly a functional board that has its values. Competitors are on that board, but like they do meet.
Yeah, thanks for the info. That's interesting. It definitely makes it seem like, you know, if true, makes it seem like this is like maybe a little bit of a more of a slow progression, not just some sudden trigger judgment.
Dexter, I let you up earlier. You said you had some inside information as well.
Yeah, I was talking to, I won't, I guess, say who, but one of the investors in the previous rounds of OpenAI, and I was asking him, like, you know, doesn't the board have a fiduciary responsibility to shareholders, and couldn't they be in breach of that right now? I mean, it seems like they just fucking destroyed their chances of making money. His response was, A, the board's the board of the nonprofit, and that changes a lot of things, and that B, like essentially all of the shareholders have to get together and actually file a lawsuit. It's not just like something that happens. So it'll be interesting to see if, I mean, you know, like you have like Andreessen Horowitz, some other people, like people who have been vocal about their support of, like accelerating and they're, despise for decelerating. And so it's possible that that'll happen, but I think that the actual like complication comes in with the nonprofit structure there, because their fiduciary responsibility is very different at a nonprofit than it is for a like capitalistic for-profit company.
Yeah, I think that we talked a bit about that earlier. The idea of the shareholders litigating this is interesting, because I think that seems to be there's a lot of money at stake, right, and a lot of investors. So,
and the
I think
employees
that
actually, I
happen.
think, hold quite a bit of that, quite a bit of the equity in the company. I mean, like Sam's not taking much. I don't know about the rest of the executive suite, like, how many shares they all have, or if they didn't take equity like Sam or whatever, but they're really fucking over a lot of the people who built this thing by sort of wrecking it right before it's about to hit term, like, escape velocity.
Well, and
Yep.
I believe Martin mentioned earlier, it's likely that the tender offer didn't close. So there's a lot of employees that were expecting to get liquidity. And if that tender offer did not close, then it's, very likely off the table at this point.
At least for the moment. So we have somebody who has claimed they have an alternate theory about why Sam got fired. At this point, we've converged so much. I'm willing to hear something totally insane. So please tell us.
Yeah, so it was because you said think of something totally insane. I was set off by how fast Eric Schmidt posted and thinking about how easy it would be to influence the two weird board members. And I was thinking to like who wins from this company imploding and basically disappearing. The government has been having trouble with some of the tech companies as sub-state entities, right? The political class.
Yeah.
And
No, I totally agree with this. If you swipe over on the Jumbotron, I posted a tweet 10 hours ago. That was a quote tweet of Eric's tweet. He was locked and loaded with that. I agree with you.
right. And so I think,
Sorry.
yeah, I just think that should be considered as a possibility here, is that they've just eliminated Google, back in 1998.
Yeah, but our government doesn't really win. I mean, the Chinese government wins when that happens.
Well,
like they just got
the
a huge
U.S.,
head start.
I don't know
Right?
if you pay attention to the politics of the last week at APEC, but the U.S. did a big rotation back towards China, so that Biden, Xi, Newsom, whoever you think the president will be, but we seem to be friends. We seem to be moving back towards a friendly position.
Oh yeah. I mean, I don't know if that was the purpose of it, but I definitely think that it's the outcome. I mean,
It
us
could,
losing
like,
OpenAI is like not great.
the government thing aside, right? The thing that a lot of these folks are like EAs, and that isn't like a toxic organization that rots companies from the inside out. And I would be much more worried about EAs in a company than, potential like intelligence agents or state-friendly actors at this point.
Yeah, they have
Same.
like.
I don't think those are mutually exclusive, though. I think that like one sort of used
Sure,
the other as a
they
tool.
could be both. A lot of EAs are statists, right? So that makes sense, and they may not be working for the U.S. What makes you think they work for U.S. intelligence? They could,
I
be
don't actually think they do. I think that they're, assets, not agents, right? It's like they're,
yeah, that makes sense.
like,
It wouldn't be
but
agents.
Schmidt's network, right? Like, you have all of them sort of saying the same rhetoric, right? Like Mustafa, the unknown, like third like co-founder of DeepMind that nobody had ever heard of until like he raised 1.3 billion out the gate for his like dog shit model company Inflection, right? Yeah, like not to dunk on him too hard, but like Jesus Christ, that thing sucks. Yeah, so 1.3 billion out the gate, and what he's doing is he does a book tour like within a month or something. He's doing podcast tour talking about threats to the nation state from GPT-4 and shit. Like this guy is just got the full Schmidt rhetoric playbook in his head. I think like these people are they think that this technology is like fundamentally destabilizing to the nation state. They want to maintain that order. I think that they would like a world where people have the same amount of power that they have right now, and the government gets a lot more. And I think that world looks like oppressive and not good. I think like that open source AI is antithetical to this. I think that um, you know what they believe, if they believe that there's out of control acceleration or the invention of a very very highly capable new paradigm or model, some threshold has been crossed where the behavior has gotten you know just far more intelligent or something. I think these are all signs that they would take as being like worth acting on, where
That
they
makes
don't want the
sense,
future to get
but
out of their hands. And it's the
what,
same impulse that the EAs have, but it's coming motivated slightly differently, and it does aim slightly differently. But they don't need to be explicitly coordinated. They don't even need to be. It could just be like there's so many things that could have happened behind the scenes, bro. It's not out of the like literally the amount of power that just got moved around. Like I would not be surprised if fucking Adam had like some CIA agent in his bedroom like 2 nights ago saying like, bro, you're fucking literally your whole family is dead unless you vote to fire Sam and Greg. Like, you know what I mean? Like this is the level that we are operating at. It's not actually crazy to say that. It's like there's a tenth of a percent of chance that that's the
No,
case.
you're
Can I
right.
can I just say
I,
one
I
last
think
thing
I think
before
I
going
think
down? And the APEC is the catalyst. So Dev Day was really
Maybe.
great last week, and now he's showing himself really well with all those people, and they're like, "Oh my God, this is going to be another Mark Zuckerberg. This is going to be another Peter Thiel. This is going to be another person that's coming
Bro,
after us."
he rizzed the entire world. It's on a whole other level.
So
It's
having
completely.
worked in defense for like the last few years,
Yep.
I think we're giving a little bit too much credit to the people who run these things.
There's always the
This is
dog shit
really
outer
not much.
layer and the hyper competent like minority. So
I've watched a lot of.
I agree with you. I've worked with the Defense Department also, like mostly not the people that you would want to hire for your startup, but yeah, like I think there's like an inner layer of hyper competence, like.
Well, defense and intelligence are very different, and there's a lot of intelligence and intelligence, and there's not a whole lot in like military defense and stuff like. There's a big divide in the capabilities of like.
Yeah. True.
Eric Schmidt has said this in past interviews. Though, if you watch his interview where him and the Scale AI founder are on a panel, he says that he wanted to stop it at GPT-2, I think, so a couple of years before, and he makes it pretty clear. So this was at sometime last year, so there was no real like safety talk and stuff. It has fuck all to do with that. It's they just don't want like China and Russia to have it. That's the main thing. So if you watch, and that's what Eric Schmidt was all about. Like they
No,
wanted to
this is a
lock
good
it
point.
down at GPT-2.
Yeah, this is a good point. I think they're certainly concerned about like the national security angle on this, and they think open source is bad for national security.
I think
But they
the other
don't
thing
get
is like
it's
there might
not.
not be capabilities that even exist right now, but like seeing that these, like you're talking about nuclear proliferation. I mean, these are like doors you can't close after you open them once, and all the the EA people would need to see is like one of those coming up, like a sort of event horizon or whatever that you can't reel back in after it's out. And open
True,
source
but I think that
obviously
it
is that.
works. That argument may prove a little too much. It works by induction backwards all the way to the founding of the company or something. Like I don't, or like 3 years ago or something. I don't know. GPT 2 or 3. Yeah,
this
I don't
stuff
know.
makes
I kind
sense,
of just
but
think I think people got fucking spooked by some capabilities and realized that this is the moment that they had to do something because the thing like Sam was, yeah, going too far too fast. And they didn't like it.
I just think that Sam was like, he seemed like he was cooperating with the state and working the state, at least from the outside in, relatively well.
Yeah.
So it'd be really surprising to me if the state were
State's
to
not
slow him down.
homogeneous.
On the other hand, the
State's not
EAs, it makes total
homogeneous.
sense.
The
I mean, they've had
Congress
an issue with
people
Sam for a
and
while.
Congress people who are holding these like sessions and talking about, oh, how are we gonna get Department of Energy to write coherent legislation about this, or regulations about this, policy about this. That's a very different like faction of the government from whatever intelligence people or some deep state people at the State Department who like maybe people are aligned with who
or
would
another
like to
country
see.
also, right? I mean, like Russia does. Russia is like famous for funding both their like opposition and their support for different things. And when you sort of control, the money and sort of influence that a group has, you can take it away whenever you want it as well. And it's like it's a very effective mechanism for sort of getting what you want. And when you have like groups that are sort of fanatical, I mean, the EA people are basically an apocalypse cult at this point. It's not hard to like, you put Yad on fucking podcasts and he starts talking like an insane person, but like he's being like validated by, Lex Fridman and all these other people who seemingly are like, have their shit together, and it's I
You're
don't know.
talking about
It
Yud?
looks crazy. Yeah. It looks crazy to me that people even like let him talk on
I
like
think
legitimate microphone.
when it was like rumored that Yud was going to go on Lex, I made this tweet that I thought was like relatively hyperbolic but still funny, which was like uh, Yud going on Lex would be like an act of mass psychological terrorism. I think that was actually correct.
Yeah, that's true.
But anyway, yeah, cool.
Is Yud the real problem though? Because I went to
No,
that
no, but he's
with
just like bad for your psychology to listen to. Like
yeah,
it's just bad for you. It's like
I went to
it's
that
like smoking
safety.
crack or something. It's
Wait,
like
I like
dangerous.
Yud. I'll defend him.
Yeah, I went to the safety dinner. I think
I
I
feel like
told
Yud
folks,
and I could
and
be
there's these
friends.
think tanks that I think are much worse than Yud. These like EA think tanks.
Oh
I
yeah. These people are like
completely agree
operators.
that that's where the
Yeah.
real problem lies. The problem is not Yud, who genuinely believes this stuff, and I don't even think he's wrong. I think he's just wrong about the time horizon. This stuff is not going to change anything in 5 or 10 years. Does AI kill us in 1,000 years? I don't know. That's their problem. But
Oh yeah. No, we're talking about like time horizons of like that are not like
the
yeah.
EA think tanks are scary. I agree that this is
They're
I was
hardcore
horrified.
operators, extremists. I agree.
They're
I mean,
they're extremists, and they it's Sam Bankman-Fried, but like they believe all the same stuff.
I mean,
Sam
that's only
Altman was like aligned with the EA stuff for a while, right? Am I like hallucinating that? I feel like Sam Altman was like not like beating the drum or anything, but I thought that he was like pre like 2019 was like pretty aligned with the EA stuff.
Sure. Well,
Well,
original EA was about like getting people deworming medicine and like
Right.
anti-malaria bed nets and
yeah,
shit
like
like
that's
this.
true EA, yeah. But then like this, what we colloquially call EA now is like I would say personally at least, it's not actually like true EA. It's more of like
Long-termists,
yeah.
extremists. Yeah.
it's not even that. It's a lot of them are just doing it to feel better about themselves. Like I want you to imagine a boardroom full of Gary Marcuses all telling each other how great they are. Like that's what EA is
Why did
doing
Oh
you?
now.
no, please don't
Why
say
did you
Gary
make me
Marcus.
imagine that?
At this point,
Oh,
I feel bad for Gary. I don't know what the fuck this
Yeah, I
guy's
kind
on,
of feel
bro.
bad for him too, because he's just so easy to like,
I don't feel bad for.
yeah.
Did you see this shit? He jumped to
Yeah.
like
He's like trying to
sexual
say,
misconduct stuff
dude,
earlier,
this guy
like a
is fucking.
psychopath.
I commented on that and said like, you fucking suck, bro. Like whatever. Like
Well,
it's
that's
true.
what I mean. Like, I feel bad. It's like watching the disabled kid bash his head against the wall. Like
It's
stop. Like, you're hurting yourself.
look. His bio says like influential AI researcher sat next to Sam Altman at Congress. Like this is like the kind of thing that you do when you have like a young boy's psychology of like trying to like impress your friends with these like accomplishments that are like completely not contextually like aware, and I don't know, it's just weird, and I read that and just felt bad for him, and like I don't know, bro. He's kind
Oh
of annoying.
shit, you're right.
That's
It's
the
hilarious.
that's
I
the
can't believe it. His bio literally says next to Sam Altman. That is so fucking
Sat
cringe.
next to Sam Altman at
I mean,
Congress. Like
like
that
these
in a way, you know what? That's just cute. It's like he's like, Mom, I sat next to Sam Altman at Congress. Like that's adorable. I feel bad for the guy.
And
Like
his
the point.
profile photo is him at a TED event I mean, the guy is grasping for status
Yeah,
so hard,
that's
and he doesn't
like
really have it.
that's kind of like, in a way, there's something like so socially unaware about this. It's like he's so deep in that like thing where he thinks that is the thing. It's like that's kind of like, I don't know, that's kind of adorable to me. I find it, there's something
He's
innocent
like
about it.
he's like an autist.
Yeah,
Like
it really is.
that is like an EAC.
This is why I don't want to be
If they
mean, 'cause
wanted to get status, right? Like if instead of building shit, you're like, I'm EAC, but I'm focused on like my self-image. This is what you'd get.
maybe,
I mean,
yeah.
that's the incentive, like, right? That's like why this stuff is proliferating like it is because it's like I mean, can you imagine being like a less wrong nerd and then all of a sudden everyone is like, wait, what should we be afraid of? And putting you on podcasts. I mean, there's like a massive opportunity incentive to be like, you know, the doomer right now, and it's like it's going to create a lot of that.
That's
Wait,
what
also he's
that's what
Canadian. Why is he in front of Congress if he's in Vancouver?
Excellent
is he actually?
question.
I'm so sorry. But like that's like what EA is, right? It's like a lot of it is about how others perceive you, and you feel this sort of strong need to want to be a good person, quote unquote, and it kind of leads you to having some hubris about
Yeah.
being
No,
able
I
to
mean,
predict what's going to happen, right? Like
it's literally a claim that you have the most optimal moral system. Like it's overconfident. It's like
Yes.
poorly calibrated estimates of
Yeah.
everything. It's
Just a little
all
a comedic.
that.
Just
It's like
a little
perfect
comedic
conditions
side
for
note.
dangerous and like really bad thinking is when you're starting off and with that prior is that you think that you're like near perfect.
This is
and
why we
not
made
entirely sure.
EAG. This is literally why we made EAG.
I mean, the name is genius. I saw it the first day, whatever that was, like a year or more ago, and I was like, oh, this is
Yeah,
like
it's like a
the
year and a half
fucking
now.
perfect. It's the perfect name, and I sent it to all of my friends. I was like, get ready because you're going to hear this like for the next 2 years
Let's
nonstop.
fucking go.
Okay, I have
Let's
a little
go.
bit of breaking news regarding OpenAI. This is more comedy, but so October 17th, Rune tweeted, all the people that can make eye contact at OpenAI joined in the last 6 months, and they're
Yep.
making me uncomfortable. That might be a sign that might have been leading to this
no,
moment.
that's just big tech growing, right? Like
Yeah.
No,
What
I'm
are the
messing around. I'm
chances?
not
The
being serious.
great midification.
What are the chances that this is just a polykill gone wrong? It's just all a misunderstanding.
Yeah.
my favorite rumor is
That's fucking fun.
AGI was achieved eternally. That's
No.
my favorite
What? Yeah,
rumor.
this is what I tweeted, bro, like
Yeah.
10 hours ago. I
A
agree.
coup
Such a
has
good
been achieved
meme.
internally.
The AI did it, okay? They listened, the board listened to GPT-5, had said that what you have to do is get Sam Altman and Greg Brockman out, okay? It's very important for the survival. All right. Good night, guys. Good space.
Yeah,
night.
later, bro.
That, you know, like when
George.
Samo posted that Reddit post about AI achieved internally, like it's one of those posts that you realize like 5 minutes later you fucked up.
No, I think okay, the best theory around that situation that I've heard is that he probably has an alt like Reddit account that he shit posts on, and he probably meant to just post it on there just like to go along with the meme that everybody's saying already. And then he's like, oh shit, I accidentally posted on main. Like let me just cover my ass real quick. Because it is really weird that that's literally his first post or comment on Reddit in like 10 years.
So, did people see that the thing that like Rune retweeted? The guy that was up here earlier. His like theory that was like 10 hours late, but like maybe
can you hear
true.
me?
Like,
yeah, we
All
can
right,
hear you.
And so the thing with the Sam Altman Reddit post is
can you not hear me?
I can hear you, yeah.
I could hear you, Vase, too.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So my thing with the Sam Altman Reddit post is I don't think it was like he tried to post on his alt and he screwed up kind of situation, because my understanding is he hadn't posted on that account in literal years. So it's not like he would just be like
10 years.
Yeah, like right. If you haven't posted in the account in 10 years, you're probably not just like browsing Reddit logged into it. You know, like I browsed.
That's actually a good point, because why would you have it logged in and like to switch between in the first place if you haven't posted something
Right,
like
exactly.
that?
So I'm pretty sure he just literally just YOLO'd it. He just decide for whatever inscrutable reason to.
I mean, he likes
I'm
shitposting,
drunk
and
and
he
mad.
certainly is aware of that guy. And so I think he was just shitposting. I mean, he shitposts about Yud, and I think it's all he was doing.
Did anybody see this? Where did I see this? Somebody like sent this to me or something, like, but I don't know where it is. I have like 5 billion DMs right now. Like that Rune retweeted that guy who was here earlier, like his like theory that like AGI, like some kind of capabilities gains did happen.
Maybe you're talking about me. I was kind of talking about a while ago in this space about theory about AGI and all that.
No. Like I think, yeah, we've all been hypothesizing this. Like, yeah. So yeah, we've all been hypothesizing this, but somebody who was in here earlier, like had a tweet that they made that like a bunch of people were liking and shit. It was fine. It was just like a summary, kind of like.
Oh yeah, that was me. Then I barely tweet.
It wasn't you. It was I would know the picture if I saw it. But anyway, point being, yeah, somebody had a screenshot of Rune having retweeted that, but it looks like Rune unretweeted it or something now.
Oh, I think I know what you're talking about. I think, yeah. So okay, Rune here. I have the I actually just sent it to my friend. Let me open this up.
Guys, I have more breaking news. The new CEO of OpenAI is going to be. Wait, let me finish. The new CEO of OpenAI is going to be Martin Shkreli, and so enjoy. Let me fucking finish. Enjoy your ChatGPT Plus subscriptions, everyone, because it's going to be $199 a month tomorrow. So.
Oh god.
Okay, so here's the tweet. Let me know if this sounds.
And I'm out. All right. For the night.
Later, bro.
All right, good night. Baze, let me know if this sounds like the tweet you're talking about. So it says theory AGI/ASI has been achieved internally
Yeah, this is the one.
at OpenAI.
This
So
is the one.
Elias, let's go for hit
Who
the
is
panic
that?
button and see.